Hey guys. Sorry, we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty, so forgive me about that. But we are live today. I'm just fixing some stuff here. I am in a whole new area in the house because, of course, my husband wants to watch the game. And downstairs, we have our biggest TV. So I had to move up here. So today is Millennial Talk Mondays, and we're going to talk about different things every Monday. If you don't know, my name is Cece, and her revelation, just in case some people don't know what her revelation is, her revelation is a podcast that is for women who are millennials of any type of women, but mostly it's geared to millennials, women who of faith that basically want to grow in their faith, as well as discuss the revelations that God has given her. So her revelation is not just me. Her revelation is for every millennial woman who is receiving revelations from God every single day. And we're coming together and we have Bible study on Friday nights, and Mondays we just have just discussions. And I do want to bring it where I can actually invite people on here. So like if you're live and you want to speak, I will be more than happy to allow you guys to come on and speak as well. So that's something I would definitely like to do as well. But today we were going to talk about millennials and traditions, because I feel like sometimes the church gets into a tradition, especially if the church is I guess you have some churches that are geared more to the senior people that's been in the church and that has maybe done service in the church for a long time. And then you do have some new churches with new pastors that have new state of mind. And so what I wanted to talk about is millennials and traditions, because I do tend to think that millennials, we're not so much into tradition, because we see some of the things that the tradition may have done in the church. And we all have different viewpoints in the church. I know I grew up in a Pentecostal church. And so my viewpoint might be different from somebody who grew up Baptist or something like that. But for me personally, I do think that we gear away from tradition just a tad bit. My mom was a minister. My grandmother was a minister. My father was called into the ministry. And so, with all of those types of scenarios, I have seen the good and the bad of what church folks can do. And I feel like that has kind of geared me into the way that I am now. I will admit that I am one of those people who are pretty standoffish, so I stay to myself. My circle is really small. And I'm I do talk to people, I do interact with people, but to say like my tight knit corner of who I would call to say pray for me or give my tell my whole heart to, my circle is very small. So I believe that that's because of also the church, because I feel like sometimes we get comfortable with the church folks and we tell them like everything that's going on in in our lives, and we're thinking, hey, these people are going to pray for us and do certain things. And I've learned that not everyone in the church is in a spiritual capacity to just not speak on it and pray about it. So for me, I do not talk to a lot of people about my personal life, because I feel like when I talk too much about my personal life to too many people in like the church, I feel like it's more judgment than prayer. And so like I feel like there's more judgment than there is like, prayer. So like I don't know in regards to like traditions, because like I said, everybody has different traditions, but like I feel like in the traditions that are just like fundamental, I guess I would say, like prayer and fasting. I don't know how many millennials are really into prayer and fasting and things of that sort. I know personally it has been a struggle for me to do fasting and praying. I there's times where I can do it and I'm good at it and I'm well, and then I might take a break, and then it's just kind of hard for me to get back to that avenue to just pray and fast like I want to. I see and I hear people talking about, like the older saints talk about how much they are praying and fasting and doing all those things, and I'm like, where am I? Why am I not there? Why am I just not there? And I think that's another reason why I wanted to do her revelations is because when you're talking to the older saints and you're talking about that, like I feel like they have a sisterhood. From all the ones that I've grew up around, it's like they have a sisterhood, and I guess I felt like I like that, and I felt like there might be other people that like that type of sisterhood as well. And I wanted to possibly bring together a virtual version of that because I didn't know who else felt like that. And I wanted to make a sisterhood with someone else that we could bond together on Christ and grow together. So that's initially why I created her revelations for that. And I felt like God wanted me to do that because it would be my way of discussing like different things that I felt like I was going through and I felt like other people do. So like I do feel like with my friends when I say, "Hey, let's, fast on certain things," and they're Christians too, but I just feel like they shy away from fasting. I think that they're so more into like the praying and meditating, and I personally want to fast and pray and learn more about fasting. So that's one of the goals that I do have set for right now, as well as a whole lot of stuff because I do have like a book like with just thoughts of what I want to do. I would say that with the tradition, I feel like in we do a lot of judgment, but we don't like judgment, if that makes sense. So we hate the judgment of certain things in the church, but we hate that it's kind of an oxymoron, if that makes sense. Like I feel like as millennials, we do somewhat judge because we judge the church in a little bit. We judge the church of what we feel like they lacked in doing that we felt like they could do better in. You know what I mean? Um, but one of those things is judgment. I feel like we do. I feel like a big hit, of course, like with homosexuality in the church, I think that there was a big, gust of grift in that because um, you didn't want them to hate them, but at the same time, you understood the philosophy of what they're talking about, but there was just no middle ground that could be put in place for the situation because it's like you're not supposed to love sin, but you're also not supposed to hate the person. You're supposed to hate the sin, but love the person. And it's like the church just could not figure out a middle ground for that. It's like if I love this person and they may think that it's okay and vice versa. And then it just made this big gulf in the situation because you had the old tradition with the new tradition, or sorry, the old tradition with the new philosophy, and it just made a big give, like a big gulf in the church. I feel like a lot of people feel like the church with the millennials that I've discussed this with, they feel the judgment of things that I feel like people, saints of God, have done in their younger years that they expect the millennials not to do. And it drove the millennials away. Like they had the chance to go out clubbing. I'm a preacher. Well, my mom wasn't a preacher, but she's a minister. And my grandmother was a preacher. So I'm a preacher's granddaughter. And, there were just certain things that I would feel really bad doing just because I didn't want that to come back to my mother. I didn't want that to come back to my father. I didn't want God to be disappointed in me. So you have all those things, and then God forbid the church. You just did not want that. Like it was just, so you it's like you wanted to explore the world, but you didn't want to explore the world. If anybody knows what I mean, because I mean, my grandparents was in the church, you know what I'm saying? So it was just like, So I feel like you have all these traditions, and then you have the millennials that's trying to break away from those traditions. You have millennials that's saying, I want to stand for Christ, but I just don't like the way you're doing it. And it's just I looked up a couple of things when I looked up millennials in the church. And most of it was that millennials feel like they really don't have a voice in the church. One was pretty much saying that they pretty much felt judged all the time in the church. Some found new philosophies that they may have learned on YouTube or through other people, and they geared to those types of scenarios. I definitely need to like really include the stuff. I wish that there were ways that I could include a video so that you guys could see what I'm talking about, but maybe I should include it before I do the video so that you guys can kind of see. Then we can discuss it. But yeah, so you have like all these things, and I feel like with millennials, with us in tradition, it's not that I think that we typically do not believe in the traditions of church. I think that a part of us, I know for me, I've seen my mom sacrifice so much, and I've seen other saints sacrifice so much for the church, based off what their particular church denomination believes or what their particular organization believes. And I feel like when that happens, it's more so the rules of the church versus, and don't get me wrong, I definitely believe that the people in the church are trying to do the things that they believe that they feel like God told them. But I also feel like that I've seen a lot of judgment, a lot of casting people out, a lot of just hurtful things that I felt like I didn't never sit well with my spirit. And it's not just like the local church, it's just the organization in the whole. I just did not agree with. Not that I didn't like the traditions, a lot of the traditions of the church grounded me in who I was. I just personally did not like the attacks that I felt were being made. I did not like on like divorce and remarriage. I didn't like the attacks that I felt other people were receiving from that because let's be honest, nobody intends to get divorced when they get married. They see who they're with forever and that person. Um I'm sorry, y'all. Mm, I don't know why that bothered me. Uh, they see forever in that person. And I feel like um the things that I've seen the church do to people, um I don't know why I'm crying, guys. It's just mm, I'm sorry. Just the things that I've seen that the church has done has really hurt me. Um Not me personally, it's just like you see the hurt from somebody else's eyes, and that bothers me. I've had family members who were literally praying so hard for their relationships to work. Um, I've had church members who suffered from abusive situations and it just didn't work out. And then by the grace of God, they found somebody that loved them enough to see them through um and to feel attacked because they decided to remarry. I just thought it was kind of mean. I thought it was kind of, I don't think anybody intended that, but I don't also agree that people should go through the situation of abuse or a hurt, constant infidelity, because our temples are a representation of God. And if somebody is fornicating all the time or um, doing things that they're not supposed to, they're bringing diseases into that home, spirits into that home. So that's one thing I would personally say I didn't like that tradition. Um, I didn't like the tradition of, you know, like, I don't know. I feel like certain practices should just be that, but I didn't like, um, you just don't like, I don't know how to explain it, but me and my church, we used to do like evening services like right after church. And I don't know if y'all been to a Pentecostal church, but most Pentecostal churches last very long. And so I feel like I would be in church for like 3 to 4 hours, and then we would have evening services. So those traditions, I think I probably didn't agree with the most. Not because I didn't believe that you should have evening services, because I do believe that you should fellowship all the time. But I do believe that the expectation for someone to always be attending to every event is wrong. And I do think that when you space it out within the week, you will find that you'll have a lot more people engaging versus giving them select weeks and select times that they can do it, because it kind of messes with their schedule, especially if they work, especially if they have kids, especially if you have those things. Um, what other traditions that we have? I mean, you have different traditions. Like, I remember my church organization at one point believed in no skirt. I mean, no pants. So we couldn't wear pants. You could only wear skirts. Yeah. So, like, those type of traditions, I don't agree with. I don't know where they got those things. Like I said, I believe organizations come up with their own thing and then they make it for everyone else. Um, so I feel like, oh, thank you. I'm all like my nose is running and stuff. But I feel like with those type of traditions, I feel like that's what I feel like most of the millennials have broken away from. I believe that they wanted to break away from just the judgment of their life. I feel like throughout the whole time I've been in church, you always would say, "Oh, such and such and such, we gotta pray for her soul because she out there in them streets," or we gotta pray for such and such because the devil done got her because she's stuck in this situation. And instead of like judging, I guess, because I feel like it's gonna be judgment no matter what you do in church. You're gonna be judging the church for what you feel like they're not supposed to do. You're gonna be judging the church for what you think they should do, and then they're gonna be judging you for what you're not doing for the church. So it's just like a whole bunch of judgment going on. And I just feel like with the traditions that the old church had and the expectations they have is different from what the millennials need and want. I feel like it drove a lot of millennials away from the foundation of what church is because of the fact that it was judgment. And the traditions were, we were supposed to come to church and we were supposed to live our life a certain way. And if we didn't live it that way, it was wrong. Um, like you just had those type of traditions. Like, I don't know how to explain it in words, and I think that's probably what's the problem, but next time I read that article, I'm just gonna actually read that article and compare it. But the article is just basically saying how much the millennials felt judged. Um, Geez, and I don't have no tissue. Oh my god, this is so embarrassing. Hold on. Oh gosh, y'all. Um, but yeah, well, it's just like the millennials basically felt judged. Um, yeah, they don't feel like the church brings exactly, like it's just like the millennials just feel like it's just a lot of judgment from the church, and that the life that we live is just never going to be satisfactory to them, versus feeling like God is going to accept me the way I am and work through me without you judging everything that I do. That as long as I'm living my life the best way I can, the best way I feel like God has lead me to do it, I feel like that's where the church should be. I feel like the old church wants to make it seem like their life is perfect and there's no mistakes. Where I want to see that there's a raw situation where there's mistakes that you can live in, and I can still daily make mistakes, but God, I know that God forgives me for them. Not that I'm consciously doing it, but the mistakes that I make are just something I'm making unconsciously, and I know that God's going to forgive me because God loves me and his mercy endure forever. That type of situation. I know that a lot of millennials have also, like I said, started listening to YouTube, or meeting people who are different believers. Um, I remember one day I met this guy who was taking pictures, and no, he was a musician at a church, and we were having a random conversation. And he's like, yeah, I play the music at the church, but I don't believe in God. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Well, why is that? And he was like, oh, well, I used to be a believer, but I saw this YouTube video about how we are kings and queens from Africa and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, oh, wow, is that the case? And it kind of blew my mind. Not to say that his philosophy is not, I mean, that's his philosophy, but I feel like a lot of millennials geared closer to that because it wasn't a lot of things being taught by men in the church that would show them, or I'm not gonna say there was not a lot of men in church, but I feel like at some point, somewhere in the church, it was more women than men. At least in my church. For every make it I'll make it clear like this. Out of all the men in the church and all the women in the church, we had maybe our pastor and one male minister, and then out of I think we had 9 ministers. So it was one male and one pastor, and then the rest were women. So you had, for every male there, you would probably have, for every male in that church, it was 2 or 3 women in that church for every male. So it was just not a lot of men in the church in that way. And I feel like, I'm not saying that was why, but I am saying that I feel like if there was more men that was bringing more positivity to the young Black men, if there was a lot more encouragement for the Black man to feel like, you have a whole much, you have so much in you as a Black male out here, don't, do this, do that, or, just more guiding instead of just telling them what to do, and just more so molding them into the Black men they should be, or any, just not any, I'm not gonna say just Black men, but I feel like they would see that more. This particular guy, his mom was a single parent mother, and he was just he said that he was just really down and he just really needed some encouragement. And that's what made him go to the YouTube video. But the fact that he felt like he needed encouragement and there wasn't somebody he felt like in the church that could give him inspiration, to me was where I felt like that was a problem. I feel like a lot of millennials feel like that too. I feel like they don't feel like there's somebody in the church that they can say, oh, this is how I'm feeling, da 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 da. And then they feel like they won't get encouraged. They feel like they'll be judged. And ultimately, what's the point of me being somewhere where I feel like I can't be open? Yeah, that too. I feel like within the church, it has become more religious versus spiritual. And I've always told my mom that I do believe in church, but my main goal is my relationship with Christ. I feel like having a more a relationship with Christ is more important than me than anything else. I feel like you do want to have a connection. I want my connection to be a peer connection where I'm praying and I'm seeking God for myself. And I feel like he literally just speaks to my heart. I feel like churches are nice because you have somebody that you can fellowship with and you don't feel alone. But I feel like ultimately it's the connection that you have with Jesus that you really ultimately want. And I think that's a lot of what millennials want as well. So I definitely believe that too. That was a good point. Yes, I definitely believe that. And I think what was the other part in the article that they said millennials? Um, it was a judgment. It was, oh, yeah, there was one also that they felt like um, there was a lot of churches monopolizing um, monopolizing on people for material things. And I do see that, like at some churches, I could definitely see that. Um, because I have seen certain things that have been like a little like, but also know that um it's your personal experience, I guess I would say. I don't mind giving tithes and offering to a church. That's definitely my prerogative. Now, will I give my 401k to a church? No. Would I give land to a church? If I have a lot of land, yes, maybe. Would I give um like um what do you call it when someone gives um trust, would I give my trust to a church? I don't think so. I don't know. That one I think I would have to really speak to my heart on that one. Now, I have seen some people be willing to do that. I have seen that. But I do also feel like that's like a prerogative between them. And with your heart, because I have had people tell me they don't like church because they feel like it's more of a financial thing. I definitely have had that. And I could see where they were coming from it. And I understood that, because you do. I think when people see like there's a pastor and he has a Ferrari, they're like, oh, where's the money going towards such and such and such? But I do also believe that if a pastor is preaching a church and they have no other form of prerogative, if they're writing books, if they're doing other things outside of the church and they're making a profit from that, I have no problems with that. That's what it is. And if the church decides to give him a salary, then if that's what the salary is able, as long as that's whatever the salary the church has agreed to, and whichever his book sales or whatever, if all of that money that he has can afford what he has, that has nothing to do with me. That's just kind of how I feel. Now, when you start learning that they've been corrupt and taking money out of the church, that's a problem, because the people are giving for purpose. And most of those purpose is to feed when the Bible tells us to give tithes and offering, it's to feed the church, meaning to feed the people of the community. So that's giving away food, that's helping people with rent, that's um, providing warmth and shelter. That's what those things are for. It's to help with the harvest. It's to help to maintain the community. That's ultimately what God had said, is that you're giving the money for the storehouse. The money is to help, because everybody knows money is what is what makes the world goes round. So um yeah, I kind of stuttered on that. Money makes the world go round. Is what I was trying to say. So yeah, so basically people were just upset about the money as well. So I know some churches do have a salary, but I know some churches that don't. So the pastors are ultimately either having to have a job on the side, or like some, they have books that they sell, like TD Jakes, or like making movies and all the other stuff like he does. I know my pastor, he makes books, um, Joyce Myers and stuff like that. Um, So that's how they make their money is books. My pastor also makes music, so I'm pretty sure he gets money from that too. He's a songwriter. So you just have all those elements that you have that causes a lot of millennials. And I wonder if the church ever thinks about, I know like there's new churches that's geared to the millennials or geared to the harvest just to get every people of every age. But the ones that are so stuck on tradition, I wonder if they understand why they're lacking youth in their church. Um, and if they're willing to change their ways. I don't know. Or if millennials are going to be willing to change their point of view to fit their ways. I know for me, I left my church because I my my home church, I left because I felt like they were stuck in a tradition more so that I no longer could see as a vision for myself, if that makes sense. I wanted something that I felt pure within my soul was right for me. Um, I didn't want to just go to church because it was required of me. I didn't want to do the things that I was doing because it pleased others. I really wanted to volunteer and give service to the church willingly. When I joined my new church, I actually enjoy volunteering for the church. It was a joy in me versus a duty, if that makes sense. I no longer wanted to feel like it was a duty versus something I love to do. And I literally would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go and work until like 1:32, maybe 3. And I was okay. It was good for me. I actually liked it. I was working like it was a job. They fed us, but I enjoyed the fellowship. I enjoyed doing something unto God. Not to say that I didn't love it from my other church, but I think at one point you want to be somewhere where they're pouring into you. Because if I'm always constantly giving out, which my sister-in-law always says, uh, if you're giving out and nothing's pouring into you, it's just nothing coming into you. So you're not, how did she say it? Lord, how did you say it, Jasmine? Um if you're constantly giving out, dishing out something and you're never pouring something into you, it's just no good, period. And that's pretty much how it was. So yeah, I hope that there's a difference. I hope that eventually the churches will come around. Um, and I hope that millennials don't give up faith, particular because it isn't a religious thing. It is definitely a spiritual thing. I think that we all should grow from the mistakes that we've seen in the church and not have that dictate our path, if that makes sense. I didn't like the old church traditions, but that doesn't mean I didn't love certain things of that tradition that made me who I was. It's just that there were certain things I was just not willing to live and let into my life anymore. So, with that being said, I restructured those things to fit what I felt like God wanted me to do, if that makes sense. So, that's it. And I hope that that kind of helps. Um, but next time, what I'm gonna do is like the day before or that night before, I'm gonna like leave the articles that I'm reading. So that way everybody kind of knows what I'm doing. Like I said, I'm gonna figure out a way that either like the videos or the articles, like I can attach it somehow. I gotta get a little savvy here. Cause your girl's not that savvy with streaming. But we'll get it together. I'll figure it out. Just pray for me. All right. So thank you guys for coming. I love y'all. I'll see y'all later. Have a good night.